brings us on to another issue and another question, and this is I get one of these every day, at least one, and that is, why do we use, or why does my design use a 12 by X, 12 by 6 it is actually generally on a standard 61 note keyboard. Why does it use a matrix that's 12 by 6 when all of the others seem to use a matrix that's 8 by 8? I've looked on the internet, I can buy an encoder, it's half the price of yours, but it uses an 8 by 8 matrix. How do I use it? Well, that's why mine uses the 12 by 6, because it's easier to understand from a musician's point of view. From an engineer's point of view, for electronic engineer, an 8 by 8 matrix, yeah, no problems, happy days. We can work with those all day long and understand that, it'll be fine. But if you're not used to doing that, and you're used to playing music, the 12 by however many octaves you've got matrix, I think is a lot more understandable. So that's why I've done it that way. It's all explained in the video. I'll put a link down below for you actually to the other video about the Universal Midi Encoder. It's about a quarter of an hour long, and it explains in there exactly how it works and what the thinking was with the 12 by X, because there's 12 notes in an octave. Well, there's 12 semitones in an octave anyway, and that's a lot easier to understand. The reason it's easier to understand is that with any matrix, you're repeating yourself all the way along in one direction, if that makes sense. So with the 12 by X matrix, it works out quite nicely because all the repeats happen in the right place. In other words, the C on the lowest octave connects to the C on the next octave up, connects to the C on the next octave. So you end up with all of the C's connected together, and all of your C sharps and so on, which I've said lots of times in other videos. With an 8 by 8 matrix, what you end up with is that assuming you start on a C, the next or the first note, it's even hard to explain, the first note of the next row, if you want, is 8 semitones up from the C. Now I don't know what that is off the top of my head because I'm an engineer primarily more than a musician, but if you count up 8 semitones from C, that's where the next row starts, okay? And whatever that is, you count up 8 semitones again, that's where the next row starts. So to me, that is really hard to understand. It's like, wow, you know, so that's why I went for the 12, because it's easy to understand. And I know that, okay, people are still possibly struggling with that to a degree, so that's why I came out with the easy strips that are now available from Hauptwerk hardware. And the idea behind those is that all of that matrix, all of the commoning up of notes, all of the diodes and everything else that you need to connect to your keys or fix to your keys, that's all taken care of for you on these easy strips. So literally all you do is connect a wire from each key to its corresponding input, which are all labelled C, C sharp, D, all the way up to the top C on the easy strip, and then you connect the easy strip to the encoder, and hopefully, you know, that's all nice and easy and straightforward. And there'll be a video on how we do that. What I'm actually going to do, I've got a couple of keyboards, second-hand keyboards which I got from eBay, and I'm going to put those on the bench, and we're going to connect those up just temporarily to the encoder using easy strips, so you can see just how easy it really is, and hopefully understand a bit more of the thinking behind it, because it's easy for me to say, you know, oh yeah, you just do this, just do that, but if you've not come across any of this stuff before, and it's the first time you've ever picked up a soldering iron and you're wondering what the hell you're going to do next, well, the more times I can show you, hopefully the easier that'll get. So that's the 8 by 8 versus the 12 by X matrix. Why do they use 8 by 8 matrices in the first place on all of the commercial organs? Well, not all of them actually, but a lot of them. and the reason is that it's more economical. An 8x8 matrix gives you potential of 64 inputs, 8 being 64, and it requires 16 physical leads, 8 plus 8 being 16. My way is 12 by 6, so 6 12s are 72. We only actually need 71, so we're wasting 11 notes. We only need 61, so we're wasting 11 notes. And 12 plus 6 is 18, so we're using 2 more physical connections than an 8x8 matrix, and we're wasting 11 inputs in doing so. So that's why most of the commercial organs use an 8x8 arrangement. A lot of people also ask, well, okay, understand all of that, but if your encoder worked with 8x8, could I not just plug it into my keyboard? And again, probably not, because generally speaking, the commercial keyboards have some further encoding actually on the keyboard themselves, the keyboard itself. A lot of them, from kind of 80s onwards, have got keys which are actually part of a circuit board. The circuit board's mounted just under the keys, and the switches are either on the circuit board or soldered directly to it or something like that. Yes, they're grouped into 8x8s, but then they go into some further processing actually on that keyboard. There'll be some little electronic chips, ICs, integrated circuits, and generally what you end up with is just something like a 20-pin connector on the end of the board, which plugs into something else in the organ, but that is not actually giving you your 8x8. That's not your 16 lines, if you want, from the 8x8 matrix. There'll be other signals involved, so that's why it wouldn't really help you even if it did work with an 8x8. A lot of people are asking for them. A lot of people want 8x8 encoders because it's easier, and at the moment my suggestion is we'll go to one of the other kind of suppliers. There's plenty of people selling MIDI encoders, MIDI Boutique probably being the most famous one in Europe. I don't know who would service the United States, but there's lots of them out there, so you can easily just go and buy one and use that to connect it up. But unless it's a direct plug-in, be prepared to fry your brain trying to figure out which notes go where, because I personally think that's hard work. So I think that covers everything there is to say about the 8x8 versus the 12x6 matrix that we use on the keyboards. So I hope that's helpful.